Anyway, I want to thank you all for being here. You know, we're all here because we want to replace Gavin Newsom. He's governed the state in the most draconian way than did all the other 49 governors. He shut down the state. He ignored science. He had his own kids enjoying in-person private education while denying in-person private education to all the other kids who are in our government schools, 80% of whom are black and brown. I only mention that because people like Gavin Newsom pride themselves on caring about black and brown students. And before the coronavirus, 75% of black boys could not read at state levels of proficiency. Nearly half of third graders could not read at state levels of proficiency, and now they're behind another year. And if you look at where teachers put their own school-age kids, they're far more likely to put them in private schools than the households that don't have public school teachers in them. So the people that know the school system the best aren't putting their own kids there. We have rising crime, rising homelessness, poor management of our forests, running out of water, running out of power because of the war on nuclear, the war on oil and gas, the war on fracking, the war on natural gas. I go on and on and on. The man does not deserve another day, let alone another term. And that is why that's why 2 million people signed a petition to have this man recalled. And about a third of the people who signed the petition were the very people, independents and Democrats, who voted for him just 2 years earlier. 63% of Hispanic voters voted for him 2 years earlier. Now the majority of Hispanics want him out, primarily because they want choice in school, which is what I'm going to provide when I become governor. They also know that they are disproportionately affected by the rise in crime. Since the pandemic started, 20,000 convicted felons have been released early. And based on historical data, the majority of them are likely to reoffend. Just the other day, Barbara Boxer had her cell phone taken. She was mugged. And a few days before that, the Oakland police chief, where she was mugged, said that he has been angered because money is being diverted from his police department because of this defund the police movement. We have 2 soft on crime DAs in San Francisco and in Los Angeles, and both of them have Gavin Newsom fingerprints on them. The one in LA is named George Gascon. He was first appointed police chief of San Francisco by Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom supported him when he ran for a DA, supported him when he ran for DA out here, and they both believe in cashless bail. So when you are a criminal and you're given a court date, if you don't show up, there's no real consequence. And again, the people who are hurt the most are people who are black and brown, the people that the left claims to care about. Violent crime is up in virtually every major city in California. Shootings, homicides up 41% here in California. The number one reason people give when leaving California, middle class, is they can't afford the price of a home. And the average price of a home in California just hit $800,000. That's about 250% more than the national average. Businesses are leaving. For 2021, more businesses have already left than left all of last year, 2020. And the rate at which people are leaving businesses right now is nearly twice the rate at which businesses have left the previous 3 years. There's a magazine called CEO Magazine. Don't look bored. I know you heard it before, Jeff. Don't look bored. There's a magazine called CEO Magazine. For 17 consecutive years, they've asked CEOs which is the worst state in which to do business. And for 17 consecutive years, because of taxes, we have the highest state income tax rate in the country, 13.3%. We have very fierce public sector unions, the decline in quality of education, whether or not a business climate is friendly or anti-friendly. CEO Magazine has rated California the worst state in which to do business for 17 consecutive years. We're having rolling brownouts. We haven't added to our water infrastructure system in 40 or 50 years when the state was half its size. There's no front whether crime, whether homelessness, whether the quality of public schools, whether fire prevention, whether water retention, whether energy. There's no front where I can think of that this governor has done a good job. And that's why nearly 2 million people have signed a petition to get rid of him. And again, 2/3 of Hispanics voted for him just 2 years earlier. Now half of all Hispanics want him out. One of my supporters is former State Senator Gloria Romero. She is a Democrat, still is a Democrat. She crossed party lines to support me, largely because of the issue of school choice. And she's been getting all sorts of grief. I've been getting a little bit of grief too. I was called by the LA Times, wait for it, just a few days ago, the black face of white supremacy. Don't laugh at him, I worked hard for that title. that's because I have not bought into that horse bleat that America is systemically racist. Racism has never been a less significant factor in American life. When Obama ran in 2007, Gallup asked whether or not you would ever not vote for a black person. 5% said they would never vote for a black person for president. He was running against Hillary for the nomination. 11% said they would never vote for a female. On the Republican side, Mitt Romney, a Mormon, was running for the nomination against John McCain. 24% of Americans said they would never vote for a Mormon for president, and John McCain would have been 72 years old had he won the election, and 42% of Americans said they would never vote for somebody who would be that old when he became president. My point is, Obama had a lower hurdle than these three white politicians. The idea that systemic racism is a major problem in America is a big, fat lie that Democrats like Gavin Newsom push because you need to get 13% of the population, black people, to be afraid, worried, believe that they are oppressed, believe that the oppressors are white people in order to get that 95% black vote. And they're scared to death that somebody like Larry Elder is going to break that stranglehold. And I will. Let me give you some numbers. 4, 6, 8, 12. 4% is the percentage of the black vote Republican Party got in 2008 when Obama ran the first time. 6% is what they got the second time when Obama presided over the worst economic recovery since 1949, and by the end of Obama's term, the black poverty rate actually increased. 8% is the percentage of the black vote that Donald Trump got in 2016 when he said, "What do you have to lose? Your schools are bad, you don't have jobs." 12% is what Donald Trump got in 2020 when he delivered the best economy for blacks, for Hispanics, for Asians, and for women ever. 12%. That's a 50% increase over what he got 4 years earlier. Those numbers are going in the wrong way. And that's why they're doubling down on this nonsense about critical race theory and this nonsense about reparations. And they're scared to death that I'm going to be able to make the case that black and brown voters who routinely pull that lever for the Democratic Party have been abused, have been misled, have been betrayed. And that is why they're so afraid of me. You know, when I first announced, I got a phone call from Jennifer. Where's Jennifer? Right there. Whenever Jennifer calls me at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's bad news. She called me at 4 o'clock in the morning. She said, "Larry, you're not on the ballot." I said, "What? We just gone in Norwalk. We signed everything. Remember that? I wasn't on the ballot." She said, "You're not." I said, "How can I not be on the ballot?" She said, "I don't know why. All I know is that the ballot came out and you're not on it." So we checked and checked and checked. And what they did was they passed a law designed to make sure that Donald Trump, when he ran for re-election in California in 2020, turned over 5 years of his tax returns. This is before his tax returns were stolen and made public. So we complied. We didn't believe the law applied to a recall election in the first place. We turned over 5 years of my tax returns. Not very impressive by some people's standards, but we turned them over. And you have to turn over 2 sets. There were 300 pages, 150 pages, and another 150 pages, identical. For whatever reason, and it was a screw up on our part, there were 7 pages missing in the second set. The 7 pages were in the first set, so all the Secretary of State had to do was look at the first set to find out the 7 pages. She elected not to do that and used that as an excuse to get me off the ballot. So we hired a lawyer to file a lawsuit, arguing 2 things: that A, the law didn't apply to a recall election, and B, I substantially complied. We hired a brilliant lawyer named Steve Barrett, and I told Steve, my cousin Vinny could win this case. And Steve got up, started walking out, and said, "Okay, hire my cousin Vinny." I said, "I'm sorry, come back." So we filed the lawsuit, and the judge said at the beginning of the hearing, "Well, you know, I've read both briefs, and as far as I'm concerned, it seems to me the law doesn't even apply to a recall election, and if it did, Mr. Elder substantially complied. Now, State of California, what do you have to say?" It was over in 20 minutes. So, if someone asked me, was that racism? The Secretary of State happens to be a black female. Doesn't mean she can't be bigoted. I said it's not racism, it's facism, as in this face. They're afraid that I'm from the hood, my dad came to California with 2 nickels to rub together, 8th grade dropout education, able to get to the middle class by working his butt off, 2 full-time jobs as a janitor, and my dad was a lifelong Republican, and he said about Democrats want you to give you something for nothing. When you try and get something for nothing, you almost always end up getting nothing for something. And my dad always told my brothers and me, hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. You can't control the outcome, but you're 100% in control of the effort Before you whine and moan about what somebody did to you, go to the nearest mirror, look at it, and say, what could I have done to change the outcome? And finally, my Republican dad always told my brothers and me, no matter how good you are, how hard you work, sooner or later, bad things are going to happen. How you respond to those bad things will tell your mother and me if we raised a man. They don't want that attitude. They want the attitude that you're a victim, you're oppressed. People over here are oppressors. I'm going to break that with the bully pulpit, and they know it. They're scared to death. And that is why they've come down on me like they have, by calling me the blackface, the white supremacist. One of the other LA Times reporters called me the Black David Duke. I've been accused of everything other than wanting to reenact slavery. And don't laugh, because one time I was on the Fox morning show, and I was talking about the biggest problem facing the country in general and facing the black community in particular, and that is the fact that a large number of black children enter the world without a father married to the mother. 70% of black kids now enter the world without a father married to the mother, up from 25% back in 1965. Now, 25% of white kids enter the world without a father married to the mother. Nearly half of all Hispanic kids do. 40% of all Americans do. So I'm on Fox and Friends in the morning, and I made this argument, and I said, you know, even during slavery, a black child was more likely to be born under a roof with his biological mother and biological father, even when marriage was illegal. So I get home, and there's Media Matters, which is a left-wing website, headline, Elder says blacks better off during slavery. I mean, honestly. So I anticipated this. There's nothing that they brought to me that I didn't think was going to happen. I've been asked many times, do you regret running for office? Not 1 second. I'm not a kid. I'm not a child. I've been following politics all my life. I knew what they were going to do because, again, they are scared to death. God forbid that I should get elected governor, do something about the rise in the cost of living, do something about the decline of the quality of public education, do something about the rise of homelessness, do something about the failure to properly manage our forests, do something about the water supply, do something about the energy supply, and that will all of a sudden cause many independents and Democrats to rethink their hostility towards the Republican Party. That is exactly what I intend to do when I get elected. So anyway, thank you all for coming here. Adam, this is the most amazing event I've ever been to in my life. I've been to a lot of events. And I want to thank you for your hospitality, your grace, your support, for everything that you've done for this effort. And I intend to become the next governor of California.
Yeah!
We're going to return this state to the glory it once had. We've got a state to save. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Larry. All right. Jeff, I heard that line before. All right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.